Hey, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, and I want to talk about a Hasbro Marvel Legends PulseCon reveal that recently happened, this Venom on a retro card. It's a really interesting release and a really interesting deco choice that brings up a much larger world of repaints. Now, Venom is obviously a very popular character in the Marvel Universe, in toy lines, and for collectors and kids. He's had comic book look versions, he's had sort of extreme comic book versions done as a Build-A-Figure and then repackaged as a Build-A-Figure sold by himself. And he's had movie versions of him. So, he's popular enough to to hold down a movie series without Spider-Man. That's how popular Venom is. So this new release, or at least this new reveal that was shown earlier this week or last week, it's the first week of July 2021 for reference, is painted to look like not only the 90s cartoon, but actually an animated version of the toy. And what I mean by that is it's not just an update of the 90s Toy Biz Venom figure, which is seen here. Obviously, the packaging is a direct pickup. But the detail of him, the paint ops, are recreating lighting effects of the series. You can see a close-up here. The use of light blue and red highlights are not meant to be part of his costume or his, the way he actually looks on panel. They're meant to be the way light reflects off of the figure in an animation cell. And that's a really interesting tactic. Here's a even better look at him in the animated series, and you can see the influence of the red and the blue as a lighting effect in order to make him pop on the animated series. So let's talk about that, because it's a really, really interesting choice in Deco, and this is not the only figure that has done this. And what I mean by choice in deco is basically doing deco that reflects how the figure is physically seen versus how he literally is. So another really interesting example in animation is Doomsday from the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited line. This was a line I headed up while I was at Mattel, and while I wasn't there for Doomsday, when he was released as a figure, I worked on the line for a couple years afterwards. So Doomsday, again, much like Venom, very popular character with kids, collectors, and for, DC fans of all ages. And he appeared in both Justice League animated style and in the 6-inch line in comic book style. So when he was on the Justice League show, very traditional looked like, he basically just Bruce Timmerized, as in two Bruce Tim something. And one of the episodes he appeared on, he fought, well, actually, the only episode, he fought with Superman in a volcano. Now, the red effect of the lighting in the volcano became the influence for this repaint, calling it Lava Reflection Doomsday. Interesting choice. I mean, it's cool. It looks like, he does in the show. And then this look was carried forward into the 6-inch line, where even though he never appeared in the comic book like this, the influence went into the paint deco. Let's look at General Zod, not this General Zod, the actual cool General Zod. There we go, Terrence Stamp. All right, so this was one that came up too. Well, it's not animated, it was live action, but it also, the difference between how he looked on screen versus the actual appearance of his costume, it's kind of actually the opposite of the previous examples of decoing a figure to look like they're animated and to look like they were actually in the show. So in the movie, Zod looks like he's got a black on black outfit. And when we did him as a toy at Mattel, this was one of the ones I worked on at Matty Collector, we had him with red highlights. And a lot of fans were like, that's not the way he looks. Why are you using red? Like, it looks terrible. He's supposed to be black on black. Well, the thing is, if you actually look at the physical costume, which we had access to, it's red. It is not black on black. It is red on black. In fact, it's a very bright red, just like the 12-inch figure we did. This was the best image I could find online. I wish I had a better shot, but we did see the actual outfit. Warner Brothers was kind enough to let us do that when we were making the figure, and it was very clear how red it was, even after all those years. All right, So another example going back to animation is what NECA does with the Ninja Turtle line. So they're doing a Ninja Turtle line based on the 90s, late 80s cartoon show, and they also have a lot of scribe lines on the figures that represent sort of the pencil and ink marks from the animation versus how the figure would look more like an action figure. So it almost looks like a walking animated character. Another version of this to look at is Our Man. So when we did Our Man in the DC Universe Classics line, there was a lot of fan pushback because of how we did the yellow on his cowl. So you can see here, he has a full yellow cape and a hood, a cowl. That's what it's called when it goes over the eyes there. It's called a cowl. And it's completely yellow. The reason there was pushback is in a lot of his appearances, he has black on the front. Now, when we went to DC and Warner Brothers for paint approval on the figure, which the licensor has to approve every stage of every figure, they actually asked us to remove the black because that was a shadow. So you can see in some of the art from the actual comic book appearance of Our Man that sometimes he has black on the front of his cowl, but this isn't actually part of the costume, as opposed to an actual black shirt here. That is a shadow effect that is being shown. The actual PMS color of his cowl is supposed to be yellow. Now, when we did him in the DC Justice League Unlimited line, the same one that had that Doomsday, we were allowed to paint his cowl black as opposed to yellow, because in the animated series, the shadow was so prevalent that we were given permission to keep that shadow with the figure. And in both the 4-inch and the 10-inch figure, he has permanent shadow painted on his face. As opposed to the 6-inch figure, we had to treat it as a lighting effect. So it's interesting how animation, going back to that Venom figure that we looked at in the beginning, you can use animation sometimes as a toy maker as a reason to add lighting effects to figures that you can't always get away with comic book or movie-based figures. And there tends to be, Our Man has all sorts of figures that have made of him over the years, some with the black, some without. And it's the animation look that tends to allow this. So a last kind of really good example is the Marvel Legends Moon Knight figure. I thought their tactic and their solution was the best. So what they did is they've got two different heads Moon Knight has. He has an entirely white-faced head, or white face in a white hood, and then he has the same head, same tool, but this time they paint the inner part of the face, inside the hood, black. And again, this is very similar to Our Man, where the technical PMS color of Moon Knight is white. He has a white mask over his face. But when you look at the comic books, the shadow that is cast on his face from his hood and just from, drawing him in a dramatic way often makes his face look black instead of white. So by including both heads in the same pack, it basically allowed fans to choose how they wanted to display Moon Knight. They could display him with a black shadow face or a white face, which is what the material actually is. Then, of course, there's the most famous example of this of all time, which is the Han Solo Hoth figure. Does he have a blue jacket or a brown jacket? Well, factually, he has a brown jacket. If you look at the actual prop that was used in the movie, both in prop books or there was a traveling exhibit about 20 years ago called Magic of the Myth. I actually got to go to it. It was from the Smithsonian, but it also traveled. And his jacket is absolutely brown. But there is clearly lighting effects from the movie, similar to Zod, where the jacket, because of the way it looks on screen, appears to be blue. And it's led many fans to assume the jacket is blue. Although, actually, I think the bigger culprit that has caused this sort of Mandela effect is the fact that the original Kenner figure had a blue jacket. But it's kind of similar to the fact that Walrus Man had an orange, shirt, or Hammerhead had a blue shirt. Those were, sort of just Kenner ways of making the toys pop more or not having reference. But Hasbro Kenner has taken advantage of this over the years, and it's really just led to more options and more toys so that they could offer the same tool of Han Solo with both a blue or a brown jacket. In fact, the print ad I showed a few moments ago was, it was a great gag taking, this in a very lighthearted way, but the end result is we get more Han Solo toys, and if you want to display the blue one or you want to display the brown one, you have your choice. If you go for movie accuracy or sort of memory or how he looks on screen. So it's a really interesting thing, the way how things on screen or in animation can affect the way action figures are colored and delivered to us. Let me know what you think. Are there examples you have that I haven't covered? Leave them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to comment back. Thanks for watching.